Hey friends, and welcome back to the channel. Poppy Playtime Chapter 5 finally is just around the corner. In this video, we'll focus on the new official merchandising. A few days ago, Mob Entertainment announced the arrival of new official products in collaboration with Pinfinity. New items dedicated to the Poppy Playtime universe have been released, and in this video we'll take a good look at them and talk about them calmly. Besides this merchandising made with Pinfinity, we also need to get ready for much more. Let's remember one important thing. Poppy Playtime Chapter 5 will be released on February 18, so in just a few days. And as often happens with the release of a new chapter, it's very likely that new merchandising dedicated specifically to Chapter 5 will also arrive. And this means one clear thing: new characters, new designs, and new official products linked to what we'll encounter in the game. And considering that the 5th chapter seems to be one of the most important in the entire saga, it's easy to imagine that the merchandising will also play a big role. So, just to be clear about what we'll do today. In this video, we'll first talk about the new merchandising already announced with Pinfinity, looking at what has been released and what it represents. And then we'll move on to what could arrive together with Chapter 5, reasoning about timing, characters, and possible surprises. Before we start though, as always, I'm asking you for quick support. If you enjoy the video, leave a like, because it helps the channel a lot. And if you're not subscribed yet, subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss the next videos about Poppy Playtime, Chapter 5, and everything surrounding it, from the game to the merchandising, all the way to possible connected ARG content. With that said, I'd say we can start right away. Let's begin with the new merchandising made with Pinfinity and see what has officially arrived. So let's start by looking at the new merchandising. I'll put it on screen for you. What you're seeing right now is the new official merchandising that was recently presented by Mob Entertainment, once again in collaboration with Pinfinity. In this first wave, we're talking about collectible pins, specifically 4 pins, all of them limited edition. So right from the start, it's clear that these aren't random products, but items made specifically for collectors and longtime fans of the series. The characters chosen for these pins are Huggy Wuggy, Mummy Longlegs, Yarnaby, and Boxy Boo, characters we know very well and that played an important role throughout the different chapters of Poppy Playtime. The design is consistent with the Pinfinity style, so very clean, recognizable, and clearly made to be displayed or collected. But if we go to the official website, we can see that there aren't only these 4 characters. In fact, we can also find pins featuring Doughy the Doughman, Catnap, and Kissy Missy. But here something changes. These ones in fact are not standard pins like the others, but they come in an XL version, so we're talking about larger sizes, and you can notice that immediately from the design. They're not just bigger, they actually have a different look, more detailed and designed to stand out more compared to the standard pins. So on one side we have the classic, smaller pins, and on the other side we have these XL pins that stand out both in size and style. It's an interesting choice because it allows fans to decide whether they want something more subtle or a more eye-catching collectible piece. That said, it's important to make one thing clear. This is not the only merchandising coming out. On the contrary, it's very likely just the beginning. Because, as we mentioned earlier, we are just a few days away from the release of Poppy Playtime Chapter 5, and everything suggests that new merchandising dedicated specifically to the characters of Chapter 5 will be arriving. So what we're seeing now represents the present, but the really interesting part is the future. New characters, new designs, and as a result, new official products that will accompany the release of the 5th chapter. At this point, I'd say we can move on to the next part, where we'll take a closer look at this topic and talk about the merchandising that could arrive together with Chapter 5 and what we can expect from the new characters. Now let's talk about the merchandising coming with the release of Chapter 5. If we look at what Mob Entertainment has done in the past, there's a pretty clear pattern. Every time they released a new chapter, they also released new merchandising dedicated to the new characters. This merchandising was often made up of plushies and t-shirts. A very clear example is Chapter 4. Before the game was even released, they had already announced the Yarnaby plush. So even before the launch of the chapter, the character was already being promoted through merchandising. And after the release of Chapter 4, they also made merchandising for Pianosaurus, even though Pianosaurus, unfortunately, only lasted a few seconds in the game. Now let's connect this information to Chapter 5. From the Trademark Listings website, we know that there will be over 10 new characters in this chapter, and this information alone is huge. More characters automatically means more merchandising possibilities. And considering what happened with previous chapters, it's very hard to imagine Mob Entertainment not taking advantage of this. At the moment, however, only 4 new characters have been officially shown. We're talking about Lily Lovebraids, the star-shaped walkie-talkie, a doll with a round head, and Experiment 1202. These are the only ones we truly know so far, so it makes sense to think that the first products could be dedicated to them. We have to consider also the ARG. In the ARG, with every update, the same thing keeps happening. We always get a new clue, and this clue seems to be connected to a new mascot. In particular, we keep seeing references to a character with a red arm and a yellow hand. This is a detail that comes back repeatedly and is very unlikely to be random. And this is where everything connects. When the ARG comes to an end, it's very likely that this character will be officially revealed. And if it's revealed as an important mascot or character of Chapter 5, then it's almost guaranteed that its own dedicated merchandising will also arrive. So, to sum it all up, we have more than 10 new characters coming. We only know a few of them, and the ARG is clearly setting the stage for something big. All of this strongly suggests that the Chapter 5 merchandising could be much bigger than what we've seen so far. Now let's talk about this official message that appeared on Discord, written directly by Ben Rooker, one of the members of Mob Entertainment. And this is a very interesting message, because it tells us a lot about how merchandising is handled. Basically, a user asked a very specific question. He asked whether in the future, merchandising dedicated to the creepy catnap box could arrive, clearly inspired by the VHS that Mob Entertainment released a few weeks ago. Ben Rooker's reply was just as clear. He said that if there is a lot of demand, then the team responsible for merchandising could decide to produce it. He didn't promise anything directly, but the message is very strong for one specific reason. This reply gives us a very interesting confirmation. It means that the team in charge of merchandising listens very closely to the community. They don't just make decisions internally, but they actually take into account requests, reactions, and the overall interest of the fans. From here, a broader reasoning opens up. If merchandising can be created based on community demand, then it's very likely that some products already released were made precisely because fans wanted them. Not necessarily because those characters were central to the game, but because they resonated with people. A perfect example is Pianosaurus. Last year, when Chapter 4 was released, many people were disappointed by the fact that Pianosaurus appeared only for a few seconds in the game. This created a kind of collective affection toward the character, almost a sense of injustice. After that, Mob Entertainment announced official merchandising dedicated to Pianosaurus, a character with very little screen time but with a strong impact on the community. This further reinforces the idea that merchandising isn't decided only based on how much a character appears in the game, but also on how much the fans appreciate them. However, the references to Pianosaurus didn't end with the merchandising. We've seen them appear again in material related to Chapter 5. Thank you very much for watching this video. Tell me in the comments your opinions. Bye bye and see you soon.